Welcome to the Bladtcast 553. Excited to talk about a fun, lighthearted, bit of a romp, a summer fair for the whole family. Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, as always. I am Christian Blatt, joined by the one, the only, Jeff Dura. But I guess it's still DeRay. It's just
that's my impression of the Oppenheimer track. A lot of heavy breathing into the microphone.
A lot
it's
of
gonna
heavy
be my
breathing.
Shtick for the whole podcast,
for the whole show. Exactly. Oh, you have a much cooler microphone than I do. But someone who doesn't have a cooler microphone, but let's be honest, cooler mustache than anybody here on the show. The one, the only, Mr. William J. Starling. Hello, sir.
Hello. I don't have a cool sound to make.
No. Our pal in the chat, Dominicus Saxon, breaking the ice. Oppenheimer was the feel-good movie of the summer. I think we can all agree on that. Why take your kids to Ninja Turtles when they can learn some history. We were talking a little bit before we got started, and Jeff, I know you've had a lot of time to digest seeing the movie. When exactly did you see the movie, Jeff?
Just right now, right before this. I just got home.
You
from the movie.
Literally just got home right before this.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is convenient because we were originally going to do this an hour earlier. So I'm glad that.
And then I wouldn't have been able to go to that showing. I would have had to go to an earlier one, which I would questionably have made. So.
So was it hard to find some room in your schedule, Jeff?
It was, and it was just like every time I had planned to go, it would fall through. Like we would have plans, we would have tickets, and then it was like my mom's supposed to watch the dog, and then she's being a sea bag, so that didn't happen.
Oh,
so stuff like that, where it was just like, okay, so now we can't go to the movie. That's super cool. That happened like a couple times.
Yeah. It's like a sea.
It's like when you see your friends on the next Tuesday.
Like that. Yeah.
That's what I assumed, but I'm just picturing a bag of them now.
A bag of C's.
A bag of C's. Yeah.
Well, if you were to finger a bag of C's, would you be pointing at it or doing something else?
I think we all know the answer to that question.
Yeah, if they're not pointing.
Yeah. So I'm glad you're able to see it. Now, Will, due to our prior conversations, but then also because I saw an Instagram post, it was a little bit of an ordeal for you to see the movie, but for a very different reason. So talk about when you ended up seeing it and why you had to wait until such an odd showing of the film.
I saw it midnight Wednesday morning. I never know how to say, is it Tuesday night or is it Wednesday morning? You know, it's like
you like drove to the theater Tuesday night, but by the time the movie started, it was Wednesday morning. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I wanted to see it. You know, we live in a town where we have the luxury of some fancy entertainment related things. And one of those things is the 70 millimeter film projection IMAX screen at the Universal City Walk. So that is the way the God Christopher Nolan and DeMille intended this movie to be seen. And I decided that I should do it that way. I should try to, if I could respect the filmmaker's intentions, I should give it a shot. So originally I told you, I was like, yeah, I'll see when I get back from New York. Like, I'll just pick a morning or afternoon showing and just go to the IMAX. Oh, no. I didn't anticipate that this movie was going to be like the rebirth of cinema and everyone was going to fucking give a shit about it for multiple weeks. Like Inception, The Dark Knight Rises, any of these IMAX screenings of previous Christopher Nolan movies, never really a problem after the first couple of days.
Correct.
This movie, I don't know if it's post-COVID. I don't know if it's because people are just really invested in the 2.5 hours of not atom bomb explosions. But it is largely sold out for its entire run there at the theater. And unless I wanted to sit in the very first row all the way to one side, which if anyone's been to an IMAX screen, they know that you might as well shoot yourself instead of sit there.
Yeah.
the best seat I could find was for a 12:15 a.m. showing,
Which
and be able to see it before this podcast. So
right. And
yeah.
I knew that you were going to run into this because we had Felix's 8th birthday party on Saturday, and I was talking to one of the dads about he was he was waiting to see it in 70 millimeter, and I was like, okay, so when are you seeing it? And he's like, oh, August 11th. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I couldn't get into, I think that the midnight showings were available, but I think not everybody can make it to those, but I thought that was some great dedication going at 12:15. And I remember you posting that we better not get a half hour of trailers and Nicole Kidman reminding us that AMC makes movies better. I assume you did get all that though, right?
Well, I did. Yeah, I should have showed up at 12:45.
Oh my God.
And that was the feeling. Is I was like, if you're gonna make us all fucking watch this movie at midnight, skip all this. And no, none of this is. Everyone has seen these trailers. Please, for the love of Christ, I don't need to see this as big as I could possibly see it. And we saw it. We saw it. And when you say like I didn't miss anything, unfortunately, I am not the young man I once was when it comes to midnight showings. And there was some minor napping going on here and there.
Yeah, but you were just resting your eyes while you were listening.
In a 3-hour movie, I reckon I saw about 2 hours and 40 plus minutes.
Wow, that's almost a Matt Reeves Batman worth of movie, but not quite.
Yeah, exactly.
So that means that your movie ended at 3:45 because it is a solid 3-hour movie. And Will, just to specify, it wasn't that you just wanted to see it IMAX. You wanted to see it 70 millimeter. And there's only a few screens that have the 70 millimeter, even in Los Angeles.
I think in the world, there's like 20.
Yeah. And
the other one, a couple out here.
Yeah. The other one's in Burbank. Yeah.
There's one in Providence.
There's some that are 70 mil aspect ratio, but not film projected.
Not actual film projection.
Okay.
Jeff, how did you see it? Did you see it the way that Nolan intended it on your Apple Watch from across the room while using a telescope?
Yeah, I watched it on my butthole. No.
It
was a fine theater, but so interestingly enough, I missed part of the movie for the opposite reason. My ordeal wasn't just that I just saw it. My ordeal was that I went to the wrong theater. So I drove to the wrong theater thinking, because there was multiple theaters I was looking at times for.
Sure.
So I went the opposite direction of the way I needed to go, showed up there, and then was like, it was right after I got out of my car, before I got to the theater. I was like, I have a sneaking suspicion I've done the wrong thing. Looked at my phone. I was like, yep. So I jumped back in the car, drove all the way to the other theater where I was going to get there like just past the start time. And I was like, okay, whatever, previews. Get my popcorn, walk in, and the movie's fucking started. And I'm literally like 10 minutes past the start time. So I was just like, okay, fuck me. So I don't know what I missed at the beginning of the movie. I'm assuming not too much, but yeah, I definitely missed it. And then I also had the fun experience of tons of people being like, not tons, but way more than I expected for a 2:00 on a Friday screening.
Yeah.
So, and it was a lot of old people, and these rows weren't very big. So multiple times this old guy just shuffled past me, like to go to the bathroom, I'm assuming, because they were like, possibly octogenarian old.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was just like,
I remember when this happened for real.
Yeah, I was like, that's
I
me.
was there.
That's not what he looked like.
But yeah. And then I had behind me what I found out at the end, because I didn't realize it was this, because I walked in, it was dark because the movie had started. At the end of the movie, find out it's like basically a family, because the father decided that at normal speaking volume, he had to explain who every single fucking historical figure in the movie was throughout the whole movie. So, and especially after the bomb went off, he had to talk about that for like a fucking while.
Whoa.
And
we haven't said we're talking about spoilers, Jeff. You mentioned that a bomb went off. Come on.
Yeah, I'm talking about this bombing at the box office. Also, I have an idea for an alternate director's cut of this, where instead of the atomic bomb explosion, it's just Adam Driver punching the hole in the wall from that Noah Baumbach movie. Just a different kind of atom bomb.
It's a different kind of atom bomb. By the way, Jason Blair in the chat, Spicewood, Texas, surprisingly doesn't have the 70 millimeter print nearby. Jason adds that Jeff needs to go to Jordan's on 128 with the butt kicker seats next to Bach Toyota, of course.
That's who my mom screwed me out of seeing it. We had plans to go see it at the Jordans, and then I got screwed.
Yeah. And Dominicus Saxon, I see your comment. I'm still deciding whether or not I want to share it with the audience. So we'll sit on it for a little bit. Which is not the first time that was said on this show. All right. Well, yeah, I went to, I saw normal 35 millimeter projection at an AMC at like 11:30 in the morning because I was just like, I'm just going to see it when it makes sense for my life. I'm not going to worry so much about the projection. But so, less events there. I did see it with the Dark Prince himself, Salman. So he may show up in a future Bladtcast where we talk about it. But all of our logistics out of the way, I guess we should talk about the movie Oppenheimer starring Sam Waterston.
I thought this was really a joke when you put it on this. I was like, somebody made a joke.
It's a miniseries.
His face looks like it's been photoshopped onto his face. Like,
no, it's there. So all I wanted to do was bring up the IMDb page just so I remembered the names of actors. And in it, I found out that Sam Waterston did indeed play Robert Oppenheimer in 1980 for a TV miniseries. And the DVD of it is actually sold out. From the
is this the German version of it?
Yeah,
yes. Der Autobomb.
Yeah,
Autobomb.
Das Autobomb. Yeah. So where is that? That's also it's Vader van der Autobomb. So the father of
Dark Father.
Yeah. Wait a minute. His name is Darth Father. Oh, now I get it.
Wait, no way.
He was trying to tell us something. George was. Yes. So I would like to get your thoughts from each of you about the film. And it's very rare where there's a film where you could probably nap for 20 minutes and still kind of have a really good sense for what happened,
It was not all at once. It was like 2 minutes here.
That's what I assumed.
There.
Yeah. Then you would have had to chosen your 20 minutes if you picked it. So Jeff, as it's freshest in your memory, because I assume that that you've still got popcorn belly from the theater, and it'll be all right if you need to dash off at some point. But so it's in your mind now, and I think it's important to remind our audience that your just overall appreciation for Nolan, and then your expectations heading into this movie, sir.
Well, I mean, as far as Nolan goes, I definitely love his films. I haven't been as impressed by the last two personally, but in general, I definitely remember seeing Memento years and years and years ago, like when it had first come out, and being like, whoa, this is an absolute mindfuck. Not necessarily being invested in who the director was, but I just remember loving that movie. And then years later, when things like the first Batman came out and things like that, going, oh, that was that same director. Okay. I was onto something by enjoying that movie I hardly understood as a teenager.
Yeah. And his two most recent would be Dunkirk and Tenet.
Dunkirk just kind of, I don't know. I just didn't connect with it. And Tenet just felt like overly complicated for no reason with not much of a payoff. Like, it was just, those two movies were basically like he loves playing with time, right? Like, that was clearly a theme throughout a lot of his films for a while, is time. And those were two that just felt like his experiment with time in film was more important than the story he was telling. And I know it's also when his brother stopped being like the co-writer on his films. So I wondered if that was part of the problem, because that was also when Westworld first came out, and I loved the characters on Westworld. So I was like, Jonathan Nolan, we should keep our eyes on him. But but yeah, no, I thought this movie was phenomenal. Natasha's dad's actually here. He's a film editor, and he kept saying before I got to see it, how he felt like, whereas in his previous films, the spectacle, the narratives served the spectacle. This was one where it was like the spectacle was just serving the narrative or the character, specifically Oppenheimer. And I definitely, having thought that going into it, I could see that throughout the film, where it was like we were really, really focused on him and the nuances and the little things. Like, again, I don't know what I might have missed in the very beginning, but I thought one payoff that was really interesting to me was you'd hear the feet stomping, right? Like you'd get into these moments where big things were happening for Oppenheimer, like he's getting closer to being on the Manhattan Project, or he's getting closer to like those, you know, advancements, and you'd hear this stomping, but it sounded so rhythmic. I always kept thinking it was like a train engine getting going or something like that. So when I finally saw the stomping feet and got the payoff of it, I was like, oh, okay, that's really clever, like that they've built to it. One that I saw how he kind of built to, but I didn't particularly love, was the bring the sheets in, because it just felt like it detracted from the end of the moment, right? You have that whole, I loved the sound design as much as I was just like joking about it. I loved what they did with the sound design through the atom bomb scene, where it was just like the basic like silence with the breathing, and it's just like everything internal. And then after we get the famous quote, the massive explosion, which was pretty cool. But then, yeah, the bring in the sheets moment afterward just felt like I knew that he said it to her. I knew that we were going to get that, but it just felt, I don't know, unnecessary. I didn't love it. And then I saw where they were trying to pay it off later when he was saying like, leave the sheets out after the trial or whatever.
The hearing, Yeah, no. I think the point about the sound design, though, like the stomping of the feet and sort of the foreshadowing for, you know, when we were actually going to see what that reveal was and how it was looming through other parts of the film. Obviously, these are all tricks that we've seen him do before, and it's not in the way. It's not like his lens flare where you're like, okay, again. It's great to, you know, it's great when you can watch somebody work and be given the freedom to do what they do best. And I think visually, the sound design, it's hard to to discount any of that stuff. You know, I mean, it's because I think the experience is, you know, probably not ruined for anyone without this level of, you know, just sort of the impressive way that sound and visuals are used. But, you know, I agree that it's exceptional on this. And what were you going to say, Jeff?
Well, another thing that I remember thinking was, because I've Ludwig Göransson, the guy who scored this film, I've been a fan of his since he used to score Community, because he was like good friends with Donald Glover, and he used to do like the side project music with him. So I've been like, oh, seeing him go from that to scoring this is really interesting. And you could hear some of the aspects that he brings like from other things that he's done. But what I thought was particularly interesting was he sounded so much like he was almost kind of knocking off Hans Zimmer, or at least aspects of things that excuse me, that I remember Hans talking about in his previous scores, right? Like, so for example, Interstellar, where he talked about having a time scale and then adjusting the time scale and basically playing the same melody, but at different time scales for when they were in different parts of relativity to reflect time, right? So like when they're on that water planet, each click that you hear is supposed to be a day relative to like time passing or all those kinds of things. And I could hear some of that like cyclical, repetitive Hans Zimmer previous scores in this score from Ludwig, which I thought was interesting and made me wonder what influence Nolan himself has on the scores and like how they're comprised.
Well, I think that's a great place to start with Will, because we have certainly established on the show, and just, you know, in all the time I've known you, how much of how much you are a connoisseur, as it were, of film scores. And this one is not Hans Zimmer, but what did you think of it while you were watching it? And did it possibly lull you to sleep during any of those naps that you had during it?
No, I really I mean, I like Ludwig a lot too, and didn't know really who he was until I think what was it? Creed, because he did the music for Creed, because he's working with Ryan Coogler forever. But I thought the score was good. I think that I do think that Christopher Nolan has that kind of the vision that translates to the music as well, which is cool to see. That the through line is like not necessarily that it's a ripping off of the other person, but that it's clear that this is being communicated and then created based on what the vision is. And I think like I liked Dunkirk. Tenet, I genuinely really have kind of a disdain for that movie because to me it's like a $250 million fuck you to everybody but Christopher Nolan. Like he honestly was like, I just really want to make this movie, and they're like, no one understands it, and he's like, I don't care. This is what I'm gonna do for me, and this is what's happening. But all that being said, Ludwig Göransson's score for Tenet was genuinely one of the best ones of that year, I thought. So he and funny enough, in terms of the concepts of time, that like the most iconic piece of music from Nolan movies, I feel like is the song called "Time" from Inception, which is Hans Zimmer. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know if it's as much as a ripoff. And watching the movie, the score, I mean, it comes through really well. But then listening back to it afterward now a couple of times, just like on Spotify, there's a lot of good stuff there. I have realized something recently in that movies are getting longer, but also because of streaming in terms of Spotify and other things, movie scores don't have to be edited to be concise for like CDs or records anymore, like as an album. So honestly, it's almost like as a score collector, you'd think that my dream would be able to have all of the music cues, but like it's too much music. Like it almost, there's a nice way of like making the score listenable as an album when you take the best pieces and you make it like 45 minutes to an hour. Like the score for Spider-Verse 2 is like 2 hours worth of music, and this score is like 2 hours worth of music. Every score, like the Justice League Snyder cut, the movie is 4 hours, the score is 3 hours long. I'm like, no one needs all this music. Why are you giving us all of the cues? I don't need all of the fucking... Diana walks into a room. It's like a 30-second track. You're like, amazing. Why? I don't need to... And
you're missing out on college students, because kids like me had to recreate the sound design for scenes as part of my like audio classes. So things like these cues would have been fucking perfect.
From a sound designer's perspective, I mean, I'm not super mad. I just wish there were 2 versions of each score, because to go through the Oppenheimer score, it's 2 hours long, and I'm like, it's not as breezy as like the Inception score, which is like 48 minutes.
Wouldn't a lot of those pieces be almost identical too? It's just like this one's 45 seconds. It's the same song, but this one's 45 seconds and this one's 46 seconds. So let's include them both as different tracks.
There's a lot. Different. Yeah, there's a lot of like similarities and stuff where I'm like, this would be better if it was like multiple suites featuring these big pieces of music. Or, I mean, it's not every single track is really like specific cues of like people walking into rooms. That's Justice League feels like that because it's 3 hours of music. But still, it's like that's the only thing that's bugging me about film scores these days. But Ludwig is amazing, and I think he deserved that Oscar for Black Panther. And the score is good. It's just me realizing these days that for me as a film score fan to casually listen through new scores, it's like a major time investment now. It's multiple dog walks when it used to be like 1 or 2.
Yeah, I think the idea that limitations aren't always a bad thing, when your TV series had to even fit into like an HBO length of like an hour, that's probably about right. Every once in a while, you're like, oh, something crazy happened, and we're doing a 90-minute. But when you look at running times now for shows, and then what you're talking about for scores, when you had to fit it on a CD, I think a CD gives you 74 minutes of music. It sounds about right. And a lot of movies and Broadway shows would be 2 CDs. But a Broadway show is songs. It's not just music. And I think when you don't have to be selective, and it's like, let's just give everybody everything. It's like, but I kind of want the cliff notes of the score. I don't need every time somebody walks into a room at a party, So Jason Blair says I could listen to the CD for House Party 2 Pajama Jammy Jam from start to finish. Yeah, I mean, that's going to have songs on it, obviously. I think that's. But moving away from the score, I wanted to talk big picture, Will, what you thought of the film in and of itself.
It's good. I mean, here's the thing. I don't think I'm ever going to leave a Nolan movie except for Tenet. And even that being said, Tenet is still like technical good. It's made well. I can at least say that. Like,
Yeah.
there's plenty of movies where I've been like, this is just fucking garbage. You know, like, oh God, why did they like Shazam 2 just kind of feels like you're like, we really stop defending Zachary Levi. You made a bad movie. It happens. It happens to the best of all of you. Like, you just let it go. You know what I mean? Like, it's not great. He makes technically great movies. And this is one that I think is better than the past couple. But I will say that, I mean, I agree with Jeff, and I felt that change when Jonathan Nolan started writing. They started kind of broke up. Oh, not broke up, but they clearly wanted to do their own thing, which I get. But Nolan is not great at theme and the heart of characters. He is very good at people talking about what's happening in the movie, and that's pretty much the extent of every single conversation for all of the characters in his films. Like, he casts and directs so well that the actors bring their own amazing tools with them. So Emily Blunt's giving a great performance. Cillian Murphy's gonna win fucking best. I mean, a tremendous performance. But when I was realizing watching it, I was like, this is 3 hours of everyone in the movie talking about everything that's happening in the story, so they can explain how Nolan loves complicated movies. Inception is an entire movie about explaining what it actually is about. And that's like what Nolan likes to do. I mean, Memento is the first, but you're like, oh, fuck, this is what he likes to do. But it's hard to connect with those characters a little bit on a writing level because I'm like, what is it that you're really trying to stay outside of the technical side of things? And maybe he's just not like a super emotional guy. That was my only criticism was I was like, the dialogue's not super bad. It's just that every scene is clearly there. It's so plotty and not super theme based that I see the characters struggling, but I'm watching the actors work. That's not in Nolan's writing. That's in him wisely casting really fucking talented people. So it's a little heady. And I'm living in my world right now of no movie needs to be as long as it's been recently. Don't even fucking get me started on part 1 of whatever bullshit we're getting. Everything can be shorter. Nothing needs to be 2 parts long. And I don't think this needed to be 3 hours, but that's just
no. Yeah, no, look, I think that there's a time where, a 3-hour version of a movie, that used to be if you really liked the movie, we'll put it back into theaters, or you can buy the Criterion Collection.
Right.
I don't know if either of you have seen the redo of Apocalypse Now, and it has this 40-minute sequence at a French plantation, which
very
of
boring.
course they cut it out for the theatrical release. But as someone who had seen the movie many times and loved that movie, when I finally got to see it, I'm like, oh, this is great. They totally had to cut it out, but this is great. And I don't think I felt like we had a French plantation sequence in here where it's like, this is the part to kind of take away. But yeah, I don't know that you need 3 hours to tell any story. And if you do, why don't you give us, if you do a part 1 and a part 2, let's make each one 90 minutes. And I remember the old days when Kenneth Branagh did a version of Hamlet, which was I think the first one where they did all the dialogue in the play. There was an intermission. Great. Thank you. I need to stretch my legs. I might, and I appreciate that consideration of the audience. I think, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, I think my favorite part of the movie is when Robert Downey Jr. stops walking with a limp on his way back to the car, and then the cop realizes it was him the whole time.
The whole time. Kaiser Downey Jr. Exactly. So I find there's so much that's brilliant about the filmmaking in this process. We talked about down to the sound design, and to think about just the film editing and using sound and visuals the way they do. The acting is phenomenal. I have one person that I'll criticize the choice for the actor for the performance, but we'll get there. I do
That was Josh
fundamentally.
Hartnett, wasn't it?
It's not. I do fundamentally feel though that I was really surprised by the focus of this film. So Robert Oppenheimer is responsible for, I don't even think it's arguable, the most significant moment in human history is creating something like this. And a lot, dealing with that is fascinating. And I'm sure, it's been covered in other things. People have read a lot about it, but I think that to focus less on that and more on a couple of committee hearings later in his life and spending half the movie on committee hearings was honestly, I just feel like it was I'm not going to question Christopher Nolan, but I would have preferred to focus on, the dropping the atom bomb. We didn't need to see Nagasaki and Hiroshima. I didn't need that. I didn't feel like it was that movie. That part's fine. I was just like, wow, this is a lot of listen. Like, was I invested in whether or not he kept his top secret clearance? I will tell you, no, I didn't give a shit. I really didn't. I could not have cared less about that. The Robert Downey Jr. thing was
His
interesting.
Q clearance.
You're right. You're right. I appreciate that. So he needed to get John Delancey cleared. Thank you for my Star Trek friends. But Robert Downey Jr., by the way, phenomenal in this movie because
Really, yeah, genuinely
it's
best performance he's given
15 years of him, kind of playing a version of Tony Stark. Because his Sherlock Holmes, when you look at his Sherlock Holmes, it's like, okay, yeah, it's Tony Stark. And I know he did that first. But it's like he kind of played that character for a while. You kind of forget, like, oh, this is the guy who is Charlie Chaplin, in Chaplin, not in real life, and to see him be something so different, I was like, oh, this is great. It reminds you like, oh yeah, he doesn't just, wear sharp suits and sunglasses and, make smart ass comments. So I think it was interesting, but I was like, when they dropped the bomb in the middle of the movie, I was like, oh, so we're doing it now. Okay, boy, I can't wait to see the fallout. Well, no, you're not going to get that. So I'm not even going to say that it made it like that it wasn't interesting, but the amount of time devoted to stuff that I wasn't interested in, this is easily like you condense that stuff. If this was a 2.5 hour movie and it even still flowed the structures exactly the same, I don't think I feel the same way about it. It's just the amount of time spent on that. But what did you want to say, Jeff?
I was going to say, interesting choice of words, because it immediately made me think like it was the fallout of it was just his personal fallout.
Yeah.
So it was like that's why the dropping of the bomb came at the middle of the movie, because it wasn't the Manhattan Project movie. It was the Oppenheimer movie. And for him, he lived so much of his life after the bomb. And there were so many consequences in his life, as we saw, the rippling consequences, literally ripples in the pond and all that stuff. Were what we saw with these committee hearings and the politics of it all, because that's what he was also accused of, right? Was being more of a politician than a scientist at a certain point.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that, and I'm remembering now another casting choice that I was like, Rami Malek's character was sort of like, I'm completely insignificant until the end when I'm super duper important. I was just like, okay, I mean, you wanted to make sure we knew who he was earlier, but that was more like,
how about,
I assume that there was, he had plenty of time. He's like, oh, you put me in earlier scenes. What were you going to say, Jeff? Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, how about Josh Peck? That's the guy with the keys who's like, you sure? Just like hand hovering over the button. It's like,
he was actually a guest on a podcast that I work on, and he was talking about that. And he was like, "It's so random." He's like, "I'm in the movie for like 5 minutes." Everyone's like, "Oh my god, you got to work with Christopher Nolan! It's amazing." He's like, "It really was." He's like, "There's no way I would have ever turned it down, but I didn't think they were going to cast me." Like he had to go through the typical sort of audition process. Of course, like his tape gets sent, like directly to Nolan, kind of thing. But still, he was like, "Yeah, it's not going to happen." And then I guess Nolan called him and was like, "Do you want to do it?" And he was like, well, yeah. So like there's a lot of actors in there who like or who are like who I think they just want to be in Nolan movies. Like David Desmalchian was that random FBI guy, and Rami Malek. Kenneth Branagh, like people who are like not in it for that long, but they're super famous. I think mostly because they just want to work with Christopher Nolan. And I'm like,
it was like their
do it.
agent was like, "Hey, do you want to be in the new Christopher Nolan movie?" I'm like, yeah, what is it?" It's like, I don't know. We can't tell you anything about it. Yeah, sure. I'll still do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was probably like that. It's like,
Right.
it's a small part. Dominicus Saxon making the point, always be nice to assistants. You never know when they will testify against you. That's right. That's why I never have any assistants. And then I don't have to worry about that. Focusing on the committee hearings for a moment, the actor, I never heard of him. Macon Blair is the actor's name, and he played Lloyd Garrison, who basically was Oppenheimer's defense in the hearing for his Q rating, I guess, which is how big of a celebrity he was. That must be what a Q trial is. Lloyd Garrison is Kevin Costner's character from JFK. So historically in history, this is like and I was just like, oh, they really undercast this actor who just kind of, I don't know, felt like a TV actor. And I'm like, oh, this is a great part, probably a good opportunity for him. And I wasn't like furious about it, but every time he came on the screen, I'm like, this guy? All right, I guess. But so it was hard after the movie was over. And at some point, like I said, I'll talk to Sal on this. Salman just like hated it like completely because he felt like he wasted 3 hours. I'm like, all right, well that I didn't let his hatred seep into me because I was like, no, there's a lot that I think worked. I would say something that didn't work because it only really happens like the one time in the movie is his hallucination of Florence Pugh, like in the hearing, like on that guy's lap. And I'm like,
I don't
this
think
isn't really
that's
that
not his though. That's Emily.
That's
Blunt's
not Oppenheimer's.
That's Emily Blunt's. No, that's
I
Emily
thought that's
Blunt's.
hers because it's her hearing the recounting of the situation and then imagining him in that situation, which is why later on she's so fucking furious with him. And that leads me to a joke I meant to make, which is that because he's a sexist, Will was napping during every one of Emily Blunt's scenes.
I miss Florence Pugh's boobs. Yeah, never saw them.
What?
No,
really?
That's not true. No, that's not true.
I was going to say,
I was
don't
sure
worry.
to stay away.
I took pictures of the screen when I went. I'll text them to you. No, yeah. So you know what? So I'll actually withdraw that. If that's Emily Blunt's just imagining it, I think it makes sense because we don't spend so much time with her character. I thought it was him, and I'm like, where's that like another time in this 3-hour movie? But if it's Emily Blunt's, it's still kind of a weird thing, and it's not something that we see a lot of in the movie. But if that's like the significance is her seeing it, I don't have any real complaint. But what I'm wondering is.
Yeah, go ahead. Shift from his perspective. I was going to say, to your point, it's the only time we really shift from his perspective in the movie. So that's probably why it wouldn't have immediately registered that it's all of a sudden we're now in her head and her feelings, right? Because throughout the rest of the movie, it's his. You'll see what he imagines, how he imagines the reactions between the neutrons and everything else. So it is a little bit of one of those, hey, you broke a rule. You can't do something once in a movie. That's the rule.
Yeah, but again, I think Christopher Nolan is like the Judge Dredd of directors. He is the law, so you don't get to tell him what the law is. So, Jeff, you seem to feel that sort of my conceptual gripe about spending so much time in committee hearings. That just seems to be me. You seem to feel like no, it makes sense to focus on the after effects of this on his life because this isn't about politics. This isn't about the science behind it. It's not about what happened next with the hydrogen bomb, any of that. This is like, well, how did it impact him that he's this guy, right?
Well, so interestingly, like speaking about the committee hearings, when I got in the movie, again, I don't know how much or if I even really missed that much of it at all. It was Robert Downey Jr. talking to, I think, Emil Hirsch, or no, that other guy. He's the guy who played Solo, right? That was his little like co-counsel guy.
Yes.
I can't think of it. Some crazy weird name.
He was in that movie? I didn't even realize. The Han Solo guy?
I think he's the guy. Yeah, Han Solo guy I thought was the guy who was working with Robert Downey Jr. Am I confusing him with somebody else?
I think
have
you
no
might
idea.
be, but I'm having trouble remembering that actor's
Well,
name.
anyways, so
that's
it
all
was
right.
the two of them
You finish
speaking
your thought, and
before they'd gone in.
yeah.
Yeah. So it was the two of them speaking before they'd gone in. And then pretty shortly after that, we were jumping back to, I don't know his name, but the dude who was in the family, Addams Family movies and was dating Wednesday, who played like Oppenheimer's really good friend, who was like the other Jew when they were at I think they were in Germany or they were in Holland or something early in the film. So I'm just saying, like, I saw it jumping in. That's around when I jumped in or got to the film. So for me, it was like everything was already just being framed as like, as I was trying to catch up, and I was just like, okay, we've got committee hearings. What's this about? So by the time I like was understanding what the point of those were, I don't think it was, and it never bothered me because I was just playing catch up.
Just to clarify, the actor you're speaking of is Alden Ehrenreich. That's who played Solo. And yes, he's credited as Senate aide in Oppenheimer.
He didn't even get a character name?
He also played Eddie in Cocaine Bear. So, great year for him. He was in Cocaine Bear and a Christopher Nolan movie.
Arguably Nolan's Cocaine Bear of his oeuvre. Oppenheimer is his Cocaine Bear. Yeah.
It's the Cocaine Bear.
Go ahead. Sorry.
But so I'm saying it didn't bother me because I think I might have been playing catch up to it, but then it made sense that this is what they were dealing with, right? Like, or that, I guess, I don't know. I didn't understand the relationship between Robert Downey Jr. and him immediately because, again, I don't know if I missed a little bit of context.
I don't think you did. I mean, because he's just hiring him to work at, I believe it's Stanford, when we first meet him, and we actually don't see him again for a little while. But it'd be interesting to try and remember exactly what it was that you didn't see. But I do feel like
Einstein being grumpy.
No, so I saw him bring Oppenheimer in and I saw Robert Downey Jr. bring Oppenheimer in, offer him a position. I saw the initial conversation with Oppenheimer and Einstein and all that. So again, I might not have missed much of it, but I guess the committee hearings didn't bother me because I knew that the whole thing was framed around McCarthyism. And then every single committee hearing was some kind of McCarthyist hearing, right? It was all revolving around communism or revolving around your associations, which is, it's the McCarthyian era where that was every conversation, it seems like, at least the way it's depicted in the media.
Yeah.
So I guess that just didn't bother me. And then it was just watching it, trying to understand exactly like what the point of all that was, like whose side he was on. I think that's what we're supposed to have, right? That's why we have the reveal later on when, because I guess I wonder if Alden Ehrenreich is essentially like us in those scenes with Robert Downey Jr., where he's like trying to figure out it, or he doesn't have all the information and he's just like, whatever. So when we had that little reveal scene with him and Robert Downey Jr., it was just like, oh, that's what's going on here. So I found that intriguing. And then again, with all the rest of it, where it was just like watching his face, watching Emily Blunt's face during those hearings and seeing how like Cillian Murphy and Emily Blunt as actors would just like, they did a phenomenal job, in my opinion, of just the nuance, like almost showing the hurt or showing the like intrigue or whatever it was when the different testimony was being given and all the questions were being asked. And even just, I can't think of his name. Something Lee or something. He's like an Australian guy. He played the prosecutor character. I thought it was really interesting when he was like right up in Oppenheimer's face, at least to Oppenheimer's perspective. And then we kind of like, when we finally calm that down, you see that he's sitting in his normal position. He hasn't necessarily got all up in his face like was being depicted up to that point. And I just think the little things there I was finding intriguing. But again, I was also coming into the movie late, wondering what I had missed. So I was spending the whole time trying to like be extra observant of everything to make sure
Well,
I picked up the
you
pieces. So
you were particularly confused because you thought we were doing an episode on Barbie. So you really thought
yes.
that you were like, wow, this story is really taking a dark turn for Barbie.
When does Margot Robbie drop the bomb? I didn't. I was waiting
Well,
for it.
for Quentin Tarantino, it's as soon as she kicks her shoes off. Will, I kind of wondering your thoughts, sort of on the same aspect of the film, sort of the focus on the after effects and the committee hearings and all of that. How you felt it worked in the context of this particular 3-hour movie.
In terms of the setup, I was like, oh, I kind of knew what to expect just because it seemed like it was a big focus based on the trailers and the marketing stuff. And there was that sort of dual black and white color. And I knew that they were splitting the narrative between color being the past and black and white being the present of that timeline. But so it didn't take me by surprise that it took up so much of the real estate, but I was surprised that the atom bomb going off happened so early. Not early, but genuinely, I kind of lost track of time in my mind because the movie's sort of all encompassing. It was super late. I honestly was like, once they detonated the bomb, I was like, amazing. I was like so sleepy, and I was like getting when I get super tired and I'm up very late, I get like sort of restless leg syndrome kind of thing. So like I'm constantly like shifting in my seat. I was like, oh, it's okay. This has been great, but like it's gonna be over. Like, thank God, I gotta go home. I gotta go to bed. Like, it's not that I'm not enjoying this. I need to go to sleep. And that was not close to the end of the movie, and I didn't know that, and I couldn't tell how much longer it was going to be going on for. And I was like, must have been 2:30 in the morning, but internally I was like, what year is it? I have no idea. Like where I like a little like I probably should see the movie again, and I will. I don't need to go now to the big IMAX thing, but just to give it another fair shake, because I also don't know sometimes if my personal criticisms are because I'm tired and grumpy. But once I got to that second half of the movie, I definitely was like, okay, now I think it's okay if I close my eyes a little bit here. Like that is when I intentionally was like, I'm just gonna just for a second, we'll see what wakes me up, and I'll just come. I would just like in and out for the rest of the movie. I mean, like I said, I only missed probably like 15 minutes at that point, but it was interesting, and I like to see Robert Downey Jr.'s performance, genuinely the best performance he's given like of this century for his work. You know what I mean? Maybe Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but even then, that's very Iron Man-y. But it was kind of the first time that
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is a great example. I'd kind of forgotten about that. That was movie. Like one of several comebacks for him.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we've all had our opportunity.
Oh yeah, that was good too.
That was fun. So I'm glad that we've all had a chance to share our thoughts on Oppenheimer, and I think that for the most part we're happy. If I had to rank enjoyment level, it goes Jeff, Will, and then me. But I'm not Salman. In so many ways. I can't say that I would necessarily watch it again because of the runtime, but I'm curious. I'm like, all right, when you know what's coming, is it going to feel different? But I do want to bring in someone to join our conversation. They are one of the most respected minds on film analysis and criticism in the 21st century, but especially in the year of 2023, in the year of our Lord. Please welcome to the Bladtcast for the very first time, Tukey.
Whoa! Hello, everybody. Thank you for having
Tukey, I am so glad you were able to join us. I think 2023 is really the year of Tukey. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, Christian. Thank you for saying that. That is absolutely correct.
And I love that you're looking up at me as though you can see me from the box that's right there.
Yes, I want to acknowledge who I'm talking to.
And for our visual audience.
And Will.
Yeah, Tukey can read. I think that Kevin Brennan might feel differently. There are some people that think that Tukey can't read, but I'm a big fan of Tukey. And for our visual audience, you can see the logo for Tukey Soup, which you did your first episode of that just on Sunday. And explain Tukey Soup, and then we'll dive into talking a little bit more about the movie.
Oh, it is hard to explain, but basically Tukey lives in this universe where all these dummies do shows, and they're all very similar. They're all very stupid,
Very
and they
true.
all do shows, and they constantly do shows, even though they're not shows. They just hang out and beg for money. But anyway, Tukey watches all these shows, and he pulls all the greatest clips and shows them every Sunday night at 10 p.m. Well, I don't know about every Sunday night, but
you
Sunday
know,
nights at 10 p.m. Eastern.
yeah,
It's called Tukey Soup.
some Sundays
Some
and it's called
Sundays.
Tukey Soup. Yes,
Perfect.
and you know, I'm lucky enough to sometimes be on one of those shows that need to be watched. But
Absolutely.
you know, one of the ones that has a little bit more of a focus. We're talking about who are these podcasts. And by the way, in the live chat, Dominicus Saxon says, finally, we get a little class on this podcast. So Dominicus Saxon
Oh.
appreciates Tukey
Mhm.
really classing up the joint in so many ways.
Mhm.
And, you know, Raging Rhino also says about time, you know. And by the
Fabulous.
way, I didn't let people know that Tukey was going to be joining us. I think that they're just so
Yeah.
excited to see you.
Mhm.
And
I didn't realize Joel McHale let himself go so much.
Oh, how dare you! I am looking to follow in the lines of great soup hosts like Hal Sparks
oh my gosh. Yeah.
and
House Spark.
that black chick
Yeah, Aisha
and
Tyler, yeah.
Jim Henson.
John Henson.
Oh,
He
yeah.
had like the white spot on his hair.
Yes.
Yeah. I once had a girlfriend who John Henson was like her celebrity crush, and I was like, oh,
Whoa.
yeah, I know.
Mhm.
I started to feel like, all right, clearly this isn't long for this
Mhm.
world, and that was
I once
not
had a
right.
girlfriend who looked like Hal Sparks. Mhm.
Good for you. But you know, I know Will and Jeff, you guys are not versed in the way of Tukey. I know in a recent show, I explained to you that I had done a show with Cardiff Electric, who is a
Oh.
cartoon potato. Now,
Mhm.
you and Cardiff are going to have a show called Yo Remember the 90s starting in September. Is that correct, Tukey?
He's doing that with El Harible, but yes,
Oh.
same difference. Yes.
No. I didn't realize that that was the case. I don't know. I don't know if I want to watch it now that I know that Tukey's not going to be on it. So
Yes, that is true.
yeah. But anyway, well, you know what? I just gave a plug to Cardiff and El Harible. But
Yes, you'll remember the 90s. It's going to premiere. It's going to be every Friday night, I believe at 9 p.m. Eastern. And again, I don't know if it's going to be every Friday night, but we're trying.
yeah, look, that's all we can ask in
Mhm.
this day and age. So I wanted to get a little bit of your background, Tukey, in terms of the director, Christopher Nolan. Obviously, he's an accomplished filmmaker. And I know that I'm going to just assume that because you spend so much time programming things for the boys and girls out there on the
Mhm.
internet, that you're familiar with his Batman films.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Mr. Freeze and the Riddler, Arnold
No.
Schwarzenegger.
No, that it's not those ones. This is
Batman
the
with
one
nipples?
where
Yes,
yeah,
Batman had nipples.
Batman had nipples. Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
No, this is where like Heath Ledger was the Joker, and he stitched a cell phone into someone's chest, and it
Oh.
exploded.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. I remember. Tukey has seen that one.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's you know, that's kind of the level. Maybe that's not for the boys and girls. Now that I'm thinking about
That
it,
happened
now
to
that
a
we're
friend
talking
of mine, but it was just because he got one of those shitty Samsungs and he always was losing it. So
about it.
Mhm.
So he just put it in his chest.
That's how I feel
yes.
when I eat Taco Bell.
Wait, it's kind of the same thing.
Like I have an exploding cell phone.
it's
in
not
my
my chest though.
Oh yes,
No,
it's in your
no,
butt.
no. But yeah, I hope Tukey, you have a butt and you have pockets and all that. I don't want to get
Oh,
into the
yes.
anatomy.
Yes, I do have a butt. Thank you for
That's-
asking, Christian.
Look,
Everyone's so
we
nice
ask
here.
we ask the questions that people are afraid to, all
Mhm,
right? And it's mostly because we don't have super chats, so we can have real conversation.
Mhm.
So Tukey, I was wondering if you know, if you wanted to tell us what you think about Oppenheimer, the Christopher Nolan
Oh.
film.
Sure. Oppenheimer is a 2023 epic biographical thriller film. It was written and directed by that guy you said, Christopher Nolan.
Sure.
It's based on the 2005 biography American Prometheus by Kai Bird and Martin Sherwin. The film chronicles the career of American theoretical physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer.
Tukey, I'm going to
What's
ask
the
you a
J
really
stand
important
for?
one.
What? Jerk off?
I think you might be
You got
right.
Yay!
Considering the life that he leads, it probably is what the J stood for.
Oh, Tukey has failed you, Christian. Tukey could
well-
not watch this boring movie.
Yeah, I was going to ask Tukey because it sounded to me like you were reading the Wikipedia. In fact, while
Yes.
you were talking, I looked up the Wikipedia, and that is the first paragraph of it.
Yes, that's
Tukey,
exactly what I was doing.
All I asked you to do was watch a 3-hour movie. You know, Will
sorry, it's
over
impossible.
there, he went to go see it at 12:45 at night. So it ended at
Whoa.
3:45. And
That
he
is
only
sick.
slept for about 20 of those minutes, Tukey.
Oh, this movie looks so boring. Who cares? Seriously.
Well, I mean, it's about something historical. It's about the development of the atom bomb, which, was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Our friend Dominicus Saxon actually made a joke much earlier. He said, I heard in Japan there's a special screening on the 6th, then again on the 9th.
Oh, no, that's horrible.
I thought that would make Tukey upset. That's why I saved the
that's
joke.
very sad.
Oh, no, Tukey's not going to cry, is he?
No, Tukey will not cry.
No, Tukey's made
No.
her stronger stuff
It
than
was
that.
sad, but no, not cry worthy.
So what is it about this movie that didn't appeal to you? Were you turned off by the fact that it was 3 hours? Did you not want to hear about the development of the atom bomb? What was it? Just everything?
Yes, all of it. Why are movies so long? It's ridiculous.
Well, do you know who the actress Florence Pugh is? Does she sound familiar to you?
No.
Okay. Well, you do see her boobies in this movie. Do you think that?
Yay! That's fantastic.
So, do you think that makes you any more likely to see this movie, or perhaps more likely to renew your subscription to MrSkin.com?
Do you have timestamps?
Well, Mr. Skin does. Yeah.
Oh, fabulous. Then yes, I will just go there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. That's fair. I don't blame Tukey for not wanting to see it. Is
Thank
there a
you.
movie that you've seen recently that you did really enjoy? I'm kind of wondering what Tukey's personal taste is.
Yes, actually, I did. I thought the Super Mario movie was fantastic.
I think we're all in agreement on that.
Mm-hmm.
Will, Jeff, we all like the Super Mario movie, right?
Haven't seen it.
I actually haven't seen it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I like
So-
the original one, the good one with John Leguizamo.
Yeah, you were
Oh,
talking about the
dare
one
you.
with John Leguizamo because
Yeah,
that is
Dennis
garbage.
Hopper Academy
Yeah,
Award.
no.
That was
Yeah, no.
garbage.
The
Remember
new
when there
one's
was a
phenomenal.
fungus that was a person? That was
Yeah.
cool.
Fungus Among Us.
There
That
is a
was-
fungus.
That was the princess's father. It was all
Yeah, he
things
was a
that were
really
never
fun
in the
guy.
video game. Yeah, it was horrible. That movie stunk.
By the way, our dear friend of our show and the old Dennis Miller radio show, Lynn B, says she saw this movie twice, Oppenheimer. So that's 6 hours at the movie theater. What do you think you could do with 6 hours in the movie theater?
In a
Tukey?
row.
Oh, so much more, Christian.
Think about how many stuttering John Melendez Hypocrisy Police shows you could watch.
Oh,
How
yes,
many
3.
MLC shows you could watch?
Probably like 2.5. Yes,
Yeah, two and a half.
2.5.
Well, Lynn disagrees with my assessment. She says, I don't understand everybody's obsession with Florence or her boobies. Nothing to see there. Will
You didn't
and
like
Jeff.
the pew-pews?
Oh my gosh, the pew-pews. Exactly. I hope Tukey liked that. I feel like that's the kind of joke that Tukey would enjoy is the pew-pews. Yeah.
Pew pew.
So you like the Super Mario movie? That sounds definitely sounds like a good one. You know?
I do like that you say Mario.
Yeah, my wife
Mario.
criticizes me on that. I don't quite know exactly
That's
why
very
that
East
happens.
Coast of you, I feel like.
You say
Yeah, it's
Mario,
New
your
York
wife a lot?
specifically.
Mario, what was the question, Tukey? Sorry.
You say Mario to your wife a lot that she criticizes you about it?
Yes, whenever I talk about this, and I look, let's just say we play a game where I'm
Mario.
Luigi, and we are definitely going down in the pipes.
Mhm.
But
Whoa.
I don't know that I can really tell more about this
Uh-oh.
story.
Wait,
I-
is it
Which
Mario or Mario?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
always
don't
say
know.
Mario, but it's Mario, I guess. Like, yeah, it's a Mario. That's like from the cartoon. So
Mhm.
it's Mario. But conversationally, I think I do tend to say Mario. And it's
Mhm.
like, you know, it's like I think my New York accent sometimes comes out, especially when I'm tired. And you know, like that thing you pull out of a dresser where you put clothes in. I might, if I'm tired, I might call it a draw
A
instead of a
draw
drawer.
or
Yeah.
a turlet.
Well, yeah. Well, look, everybody likes a nice turlet, you know.
You put an R in toilet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
Word.
I know that the great Chip Chipperson has been known to refer to it as a turlet.
Oh,
Do you have any thoughts on Chip Chipperson, Jeff?
I don't know who you're talking about because that's obviously not a real person.
Correct. I just wanted to make sure that we were maintaining the continuity,
Integrity of the show.
here. Tukey, how close did you get to trying to see Oppenheimer? Did you go to the movies, or were you just like, no, I would rather Tukey would rather stay at home?
No, I did. Even though Tukey does not like to fuel the child pornography machine that is Hollywood, he did go and he decided to watch The Little Mermaid instead.
Oh, so you saw the new version of Little Mermaid. Well, my daughter is 5.5, and she loved about the first hour of it. And then as soon as she turned into a human and was on land, she slept the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
But she liked the first part, where there were fish and undersea and all of that. What did you think of the Little Mermaid movie, Tukey?
I thought visually it was nice, but overall it was crap. Tukey does not care that the Little Mermaid was black. It was the fact that she had that giant Cocoa Puff on her forehead the whole movie.
It was interesting. She did have a birthmark. Yeah.
I could not stop staring at that giant Cocoa Puff. And also, it was like people singing karaoke to the original Little Mermaid songs.
Well, I think that, and it's funny, of all the movies that have come out this summer, I think The Little Mermaid is the one that we haven't covered on this podcast. But the worst part for me is that there were new songs in it. And, when you put a movie out that is a classic and beloved musical, they added some new songs to it. And they were written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who did Hamilton. And I think that his style works really well for a concept like Hamilton, where it's like, okay, well, yeah, what if everybody rapped and the ethnicities didn't matter for what people actually were in the time period? Great. And then he writes a song for this where Scuttle, the seagull, is rapping.
Oh,
and,
yes.
And that's Aquafina. So all of a sudden, the seagull is rapping in the middle of the Little Mermaid, and the rest of the songs kind of are all still the same. Although somebody somewhere decided, like, hey, what if we gave Prince Eric a song? Which I think no one ever said in 35 years of watching the Little Mermaid movie. No one ever said, if only Prince Eric had a movie.
No.
Or was that your favorite song in the movie, Tukey? I don't want to.
No. No, it stunk. It all stunk. All the songs stunk.
Wait, I have a question. Are we criticizing Halle Bailey for having a birthmark on her forehead? That woman is fucking gorgeous. There are no problems with that lady.
Will, do you see who made the criticism?
Yes, she had a
look
Cocoa
over.
Puff.
Look over at who made this point.
That's okay. Sorry, not we. Tukey.
Yes, thank you. Yes. The opinions expressed by Tukey are not necessarily endorsed by the Bladtcast.
I love Cocoa Puffs, so when I see it on someone's head like that, I can't stop staring at it.
Would you go so far as to say that you are actually cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs?
Oh yes, I'm absolutely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Yay! Whoa!
And Will, I'm sorry I spoke over you, but I wanted to make sure that I
it's just the mole scene in Austin Powers, the fixation on the mole. It seems to be.
Yeah, well, that was probably a similar reaction from Tukey. So it's interesting that that's the one that you chose to see, but I feel like you probably just loved the old cartoon version, and you figured Tukey will just go. Did either of you guys see the Little Mermaid, or did you not have the excuse of a 5-year-old daughter to make you go see it?
Well, see, the thing with Disney movies like that is I will not spend my dollars on seeing them because they will come out on Disney Plus, which I already spend my dollars on. So fuck that. I will wait for it to come out on streaming.
That's a great point.
And then I'll hate it when I see it on streaming.
Oh,
see,
Tukey, how do you do with dogs? I hope that dog's not in Tukey's house. I hope it's
no. I don't know where that dog came from.
Are you afraid that that is a great dog that I know named Charlie Brown, referred to as Charles? But I feel like Tukey, you look probably an awful lot like a lot of dogs chew toys. So,
yes. He would tear me up.
So
Tear
I
my
think you're
shit up.
glad that you're in your own little rectangle,
Mhm.
letting all the boys and girls know about Tukey Soup. Well, Tukey, I don't want to keep you for too long because Tukey is actually very busy these days. The
Oh,
number of
yes.
shows that Tukey turns up on,
Mhm.
and I even added Yo Remember the 90s to Tukey, but that's actually not
Mhm.
one of your shows. But you've been on Who Are These Podcasts much more
Mhm.
recently than I have. You've been on a couple of times since the last time I was on. So I'm not
Yep.
jealous of Tukey though,
Oh.
because like so many people, I love Tukey. I think the only person who really doesn't, there's two. There's a potato that doesn't like you, Cardiff,
Mhm.
and Kevin Brennan, the self-styled comedian. He doesn't like you, does he?
No, Kevin will not acknowledge my existence, even though I do a fabulous Kevin Brennan impression.
Chad's a fucking idiot. He's a fucking hack.
But he will not accept Tukey.
No, and maybe that's what it is
He
that he
says Tukey is
realizes.
a stupid puppet.
Yeah, and I think that Tukey is actually a very intelligent and very smart puppet.
Oh, thank
If
you.
you were to badmouth some puppets that you think are stupid, do any come to mind immediately that you think, oh, if you want to see a stupid puppet, you should look for so and so?
Does Cardiff count as a puppet?
He's a potato and he's more animated, so he's a cartoon.
Nah.
Yeah.
No, I enjoy all the puppets. I do not have any puppet enemies that I know of. I mean, I'm sure they're all jealous like Cardiff, but
Yeah. So you're
No.
okay with the Muppets and
Mhm.
everybody over at Sesame Street. Yeah.
yes, everyone is great.
Would you be open to a collaboration if perhaps the next Muppet film also featured Tukey?
Yes, but I don't think they will have Tukey because Tukey talks about penises and cum and butts and says racial
Well,
things sometimes.
only occasionally though. And I think Tukey has really cleaned up his act, and that's why
Thank you.
Tukey, I believe you can be found on Cameo, right?
Yes, it was a joke, but I've actually gotten like 8 requests, which is fantastic. Yay! So there was a show called Steel Toe Morning Show, and he was bragging about how Cameo contacted me and invited me to join Cameo. So Tukey said, wait a minute. I feel like any asshole with an email can join Cameo. And Tukey did. And now Tukey's an asshole on Cameo. Yay!
And if anybody wants a cameo from Tukey, what should they expect to pay? Is it are we talking like
it's very
Caitlyn
expensive.
Jenner, like $1,500?
No, it's
Oh,
$10. I
It's
cannot.
$10.
Yes, I cannot gouge my fans out of more money. I mean, they want just little clips, little things from Tukey. Tukey has congratulated people for their birthdays, for new jobs, just for being fantastic people. And yeah, $10 seems pretty fair for Tukey's time. And Tukey will at least do 3.5 to 5 minutes.
Oh, I mean, that seems like a real value.
Yeah.
Speaking of Chip Chipperson, I did once buy a cameo from Chip Chipperson
Oh.
for my friend Zia, who ironically ended up doing a show with him for years. So I could have saved my money, but it was $69. What do you think about that
Whoa.
price, Tukey?
I mean, that is a very funny price, but it's a lot of money.
It
to have
is a lot of money.
Chip Chipperson say, tiff. What was that? Your balls or something? Tiff.
You don't even know what you just said. Yeah.
You know what you just said.
So Tukey, if say somebody had, a son named Felix who just turned 8 years old.
Oh,
And they asked Tukey to say happy birthday to them. What would it be like?
oh, absolutely. Felix, this is your good pal Tukey. Yay! Your friend till the end. I heard that you just turned 8?
8.
8. That is fantastic. I am so proud of you, Felix. I heard you're very good at video games, and Tukey feels that you could go pro. So you should probably quit school and not listen to you. No, you shouldn't do that. You should stay in school, but eventually, I think you could go pro. Felix, I truly believe in you. Happy birthday and congratulations on turning 8. Tukey loves you more than a friend. Yay!
So now I feel like if I Venmo El Horrible $10, will he give it to you?
No.
Or he'll keep it to himself?
No, don't you dare.
Okay.
That is on Tukey.
That is odd, Tukey. All right, I appreciate it. Yeah, my son saw me watching Tukey Soup, and I was like, "Oh, well, this is a grown-up puppet." And but you actually remind him of a puppet on a show that he watches. It's an elementary school teacher named Mr. DeMayo who has like an educational show for kids, and he has a puppet named Andy that he felt looked like you. But I was like, I'm pretty sure that. You could you could send a patented Cardiff Electric cease and desist. And I'm sorry, Jeff, you were about to say something.
I was going to say, I feel like grown-up puppet sounds like an awkward conversation between a single father and their kid that walked in at an inopportune time.
That makes Tukey so happy to hear. Tukey always loves when people contact Tukey and they go, "My wife walked in and she was like, we have to talk about what you're doing." I love that.
Oh, well, Tukey, I really appreciate you taking the time out of Tukey's very busy schedule. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little disappointed you didn't see the movie, but I love Tukey so much I can't stay mad.
I'm sorry. Yes, no, please don't. Tukey doesn't watch many movies. That is very well known. Do you know Carlos Danger?
I know the name Carlos Danger. Sure, okay. I also know whose fake name was that. Oh, that was Anthony Weiner's fake name was Carlos Danger. Yes.
So Carlos Danger is one of Tukey's great friends, and he does a podcast called the Insufferable Bastards Podcast, where they talk about movies all the time. He is a fantastic person to have on this show to talk about movies. Carlos knows everything about movies, and he makes fun of Tukey and El Horrible because they don't watch movies.
Who do you think is a better guest for people who have podcasts? And everyone in our audience probably has their own podcast. Do you think that they should reach out to Tukey or El Horrible? Who's a better guest on a show?
Tukey seems to be pretty hot right now. Everybody wants a little bit of the Tukey rub. Everyone wants to get a little bit of the Tukey rub. Oh yes, rub on Tukey.
But only with your hands. Let's keep it PG-13. Tukey, I appreciate you giving us some of the Tukey rub. And I'm sorry, Jeff, I feel like I stepped on something I shouldn't have.
I said no Tukey Ookie.
No Tukey Ookie. No, we never want the Tukey Ookie. So and then you can be found everywhere. Well, I was going to say on Twitter, but I believe it's called X now. Are you on X, Tukey?
Yes. I think it's at Tukey Soup Time.
Okay.
Or at Bdabbler. I'm horrible with marketing, and I have things all over the place. And just Google Tukey Soup, and maybe it'll come up. I don't know.
It sounds better than your friend Cardiff, who every time I see him, he's announcing a new podcast that he's starting the upcoming Monday. So I think that you have a lot on Tukey's plate or in your bowl for Tukey Soup.
Wow.
And try to manage that. Do as many guest appearances as you can. And I'm looking forward to more Tukey Soup. And I'm glad that I got to have my friend Tukey meet my other friends, Will and Jeff. I'm very happy that you took the time to meet them today.
I don't think Will knows what to make of Tukey. He looks befuddled.
Is that an accurate assessment, Will?
Yeah, I didn't know what to make of what you were like. Oh, we'll be doing something after this. And I think I was just like, oh, it's very
stupid.
It's a left turn. No, it's not stupid. Well, I have a Swedish chef puppet behind me on a small table, so I like puppets.
I just pointed at a piano.
Well,
that's behind my phantom wall here, chef.
Yeah,
I keep my bat suit and other things
behind you, where you have Frasier's living room behind you.
That's right.
Yeah. So this idea that I would love to talk to Tukey about this movie came before I saw the movie, and I thought it was going to be a lot more depressing and sad about nuclear devastation than it was. But instead, it just turned out to be a 3-hour committee hearing. So I still feel okay. And by the way, Tukey, Raging Rhino, does clarify it is at Tukey Soup Time, and he has just followed you.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Raging Rhino. I love you more than a friend.
Yeah. So, but Will, I think you can appreciate. This is the first puppet we've ever had on the Bladtcast, and Tukey, we've been doing the Bladtcast for 10 years.
Whoa!
Yeah. I'm amazed that we haven't somehow had another puppet on. But well, wait, you don't consider the potato a puppet?
No, he's a cartoon.
I asked
that. What about
Baczynski? See? Yep.
Oh, our
well,
friend David
Lieutenant's-
is a bit of a puppet, but that's just because he appreciates people putting their hands in
Yeah.
his bottom.
Some
Whoa.
people say puppet. I say corporate shill, but you know, that's
Oh,
Mhm.
oh. Well,
Mhm.
I think we can drop the mic on that. Tukey, I really appreciate it, and I look forward to getting a chance to talk to you again sometime soon. I don't know when or where. If I ever end up on a show with Tukey, my career is going to be heading in the right direction because right
Mhm.
now this is the first time I've been on a show with Tukey. I think I was on something with Bedabbler once, but that's not really the same, is it?
No, it is not. Tukey Mania is running wild. And thank you, Christian. Thank you for having me, Tukey, on the show. Thank you for my new friends, Jeff and Will. Tukey loves you all more than a friend. Yay!
Thank you. And
Goodbye, Tukey. Nice
I
to
don't think
meet
I was able to set it up, but on the way out, why don't you give us a hacka? I thought that, I guess our comedy wasn't hacky enough that we warranted a hacka.
No, that is Tukey's fault. Tukey sometimes forgets about all these stupid catchphrases. So let's just do it now. Hacka!
Thank you, Tukey. Everybody, please follow at Tukey Soup Time, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks again, Tukey.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
So that's not what you were expecting, was it, Will? That I was going to have a puppet on who.
There was a good 5 to 10 minutes where I was like, "What the fuck is even?"
I would just want to point out Tukey has a larger presence on the internet than any of us. All
I'm
of
not
us combined.
surprised. That
Yeah.
does not surprise me at all. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
puppets are more interesting than any of us combined, honestly.
Yeah, no, I agree. And oh my gosh, Raging Rhino, where was this comment 1 minute ago? Getting some Tukey Nookie. Or Tookie
Oh.
Nookie. I'm not even sure how to say it. We did it all for the Nookie. Yeah, I kind of hoped he would actually take the time to see the movie, but in all honesty, I didn't think that.
See, if he saw it, then maybe it would be a Tukey Nookie.
I love that. Now, see, I feel like that should be the title of the episode. I wanted to call it John Jacob Oppenheimer Schmidt because it made me laugh. But,
I saw that.
That is good. I like that.
Oh, well, that's why so many of the titles on the
about-
Bladtcast have or, but sorry, what?
Dr. Oppenheimer and How I Learned to Tukey the Nookie.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. How I learned to stop worrying and love the Tukey Nookie. Yeah. I don't think I can use all those characters. So we'll workshop that. So to wind things up at an hour and 16 minutes, the question will be, Will, if somebody asks you, one, do you think I should see Oppenheimer? What is your answer to them?
Yes.
If someone says, oh, I was thinking of watching Tukey Soup Sundays at 10 on YouTube, what do you think you would say?
If that's your cup of tea, you should do it.
Or bowl of soup, perhaps?
Or bowl of soup. Yeah.
That's fair.
You know what? I think he just struck a wrong note with my infatuation with Halle Bailey, and
she's lovely, by the way, and she's fantastic in the film. And I think that if I had to guess, Tukey had probably used that joke somewhere else before, and it probably got a laugh and wasn't focused on. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, this is I used a lot of jokes at a lot of places that sometimes they would do well, sometimes they wouldn't, and I would take the aggregate, and determine whether or not to keep the joke alive.
I mean, when was the last time we heard you dust off your Mark Wahlberg impression? You know what I mean?
It's been a long time.
I'm not even talking about other voices you used to do because honestly, I don't even remember
it's cultural appropriation.
That's
what
you're
Mark
not from
Wahlberg?
Boston, so you can't talk like us.
That's true. Only
I
Jeff
lived there for 2 months. Jeff.
Yeah.
Doesn't count, kid.
Only Jeff can do the Boston accent at this point because Will and I are just in California. Jeff, if somebody asked you, I'll ask you the same question. If they said, "Hey, I'm thinking of checking out Oppenheimer," what would you tell them?
I would definitely recommend it. I mean, as long as they're not somebody who's going to have trouble with a long movie, yeah. I don't see any reason not to see it for yourself at the very least. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, this is clearly a movie that a lot of people are going to see. There's a lot to it. It's something worth discussing, right? Versus as much as we love Marvel movies or loved whatever, it wasn't like there was a ton to discuss, right? Like, hey, there was a guy and he did a thing and then they bang, 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 and it was over. Whereas this movie, there's like, hey, this is a real person. These are real things that really happen.
Right.
And like, this is the rippling effect on our actual real life world. So there's tons to discuss.
In the heyday of when we would talk about Marvel movies, though, there would always be that part where it's like, and Will, what did you think about when Stan Lee was the FedEx delivery man? You know, Tony Stank?
I will say that we were missing the scene of old Oppenheimer saying, I remember when I invented the nuclear bomb. I saw the Hulk climbing on the wall, and I
think
thought
about how amazing.
They had that scene. It's when he's old and getting the medal, and then he sees Benny Safdie's character again.
You're right. I missed it. That's a small thing. I know we're wrapping up, but I guess I missed that detail where Emily Blunt hated Benny Safdie. I was like, wait, what?
So that was from the testimony. He gives testimony where he's essentially saying Oppenheimer's cool-ish, but then he's pressed and he goes, no, I don't think, because of his impetuous attitude. Basically, he sells him out without strictly selling him out, and it was enough that it was like he totally effed him over, because Safdie was the one that they're referring to as having been jealous of Oppenheimer because he was more of the progenitor of the hydrogen bomb versus the atom bomb, and that was a big point of contention, was the creating the what they called the super bomb.
Right, and she was also pissed.
Maybe that was asleep at that point. Yeah,
Kitty Oppenheimer is her character's name, and Kitty was very upset because Oppie, as we haven't even talked about, people apparently called him Oppie. She was very upset that he shook his hand after he said all that, you know, and so then that's why when he goes to shake her hand, she just looks at him like, nope. And Raging Rhino says, I watched the Snyder Cut without a break. Oppenheimer will be a piece of cake. And Oppenheimer is absolutely worth the watch, says Dominicus Saxon, but take a nap first. Will, did you take a nap before your 12:45 movie? Or
I really tried. I saw 8 hours of movies that night. I went to the New Beverly for a 7:30 screening of Escape from New York. And then that was a double feature with Total Recall, and my intention was to sleep during Total Recall because I've already seen it. And I was like, I'll sit in the back. I'll just sit in the back and just like set an alarm. And
is it the Schwarzenegger one or the Farrell one?
The Schwarzenegger one. Yeah, the New Beverly would never play the remake.
Yeah, I agree.
Good.
And didn't sleep. I tried, closed my eyes. I got to the theater early, had a cup of coffee, but I couldn't sleep before. So
yeah.
I think
so. You respect the advice, but you were unable to take it yourself. You tried. You definitely tried.
I tried. Yeah.
Excellent. I think. Look, I think that even, and I've been very critical of Tenet since it came out. I think even that movie, there's a lot of it. It's confusing, but there's so much of it that's at least interesting, and it's well cast, and it's almost like worth watching to be like, look, maybe you'll figure it out because I couldn't crack that code. You know, it's like when everybody was doing Wordle, you know, and sharing their scores, and like, well, maybe you'll get it on the first try. You know, so it's like I'd even say like, yeah, go check out Tenet. You might get it. I wasn't smart enough. I'm somebody who likes Tukey, so obviously this movie might be above my head. But
I don't dislike Tukey.
All right, I'm gonna send that clip to him because I think that Tukey will have trouble.
I love Tukey. I love him.
I think that it's a him. Yeah, it's established. It's canon. No, it's canon that he's a him, because he does talk about penises and cum sometimes. So
I did hear that.
Depends
on the show he's on. Yeah, sometimes. Well, yeah, exactly. So he fits. I honestly, I think he fits right in here at the show. If only he had watched the movie. But I'll send that clip to Tukey because I think he'll be glad to know that Will does indeed love Tukey because America loves Tukey. I think that's what we're finding. It is the summer of Tukey. But so I'm glad we album. Tukey with all the hits. Yeah, that's right. That's the first big one. The Green Day Tukey album, which has a song about masturbation. So you see, it all goes full circle. So what are we excited for the rest of the summer? I know Will and I have a loose plan for Blue Beetle, because as I mentioned,
Yeah.
I think I forget what movie it was before, but my wife and I were seeing a movie, and in the middle of Blue Beetle, she just leaned in and said, "Nope." So,
Just funny because I
so
don't feel like it looks that bad.
no,
And
yeah.
she was, well, I know she likes Chuck, so I know she was looking forward to Shazam too. But
It must
Yeah,
have
but
been
then
when
she actually
saw-
she still hasn't seen it because of not that she watched or listened to the Bladtcast about it, but she kind of knew how we felt about it, so she was in no rush to see it. And I'm sorry, what were you saying, Jeff?
I like to believe that it's when she saw George Lopez was in it. She was like, and I'm out.
I like his weird long hair.
Yeah,
His joke
Yeah.
about Batman being a fascist. It's not true.
no, it's not true. He's a capitalist. Come on, I
Yeah.
mean, I think we all know. But yeah, I think that's kind of the next big one. I still haven't seen Barbie, because my daughter couldn't wait for me to see it with her, so she went with Heather and Felix. So, but I'm told that she needs to see it again, so I'll probably see it at some point. But I think we're past the point in the really Oppenheimer was the last one where I'm like, all right, yeah, I really want to make sure that I see that. Blue Beetle, I'm looking forward to. I hope it's fun. But it's not that level. But am I missing something that either of you can think of?
Nothing.
Like
I haven't
my
really-
Big Fat Greek Wedding 3. I'm looking at the.
Are you going to do a Barbie podcast? You going to talk about Barbie?
After I see it, I will decide. Have you seen it, Will?
Oh yeah.
Well, if you feel like I'm going to want to after I see it, then absolutely.
I don't know if that's your
Yeah.
audience.
I
don't
mean,
know. I think it's good. Funny enough, I loved Barbie and I hated Spider-Man too. Into the Spider across.
Across the Spider.
along the watch
I'm sorry.
Power
I
Rangers.
thought you were saying you hated the second Tobey Maguire with.
No,
Doc Ock.
sorry. No,
And,
the Andrew Garfield. The Andrew
I was
Garfield second one.
The Andrew Garfield second one. You mean Amazing Spider-Man?
But yes,
Yeah.
Across the Spider-Verse, not for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
2.5 hours of not a whole story with
Wow.
zero message, and then it ends.
That-
So I was like, what? I didn't know it was
that-
supposed to be one part. I thought it was one
that-
movie.
That was the part I
Is
was
that your
most
part
upset
one?
about. Yeah. That's a movie you were talking about when you said, like, how is it the part one?
Yes,
Uh,
it and Mission Impossible, but more so it because Mission Impossible at least kind of ended,
Well,
even though they're going to
yeah,
go to the next
they-
thing or whatever.
right. And at least that one, the title of the movie is part one. This one
Yeah.
wasn't. Yeah, Spider-Verse. That's
I
interesting.
out loud
But
in
I
the
mean-
theater with Casey next to me when it ended. I went, what? I remember looking at my watch going, God, they got fucking 10 minutes to wrap all this shit up. There's so many like loose threads. How are they going to do this so fast? They're not. That was the answer. They didn't do it.
I mean, they always said they were making 2 movies. And
Yeah,
like the
I
plan
know
was
that.
always that they were making 2 more movies and it would be a split sequel, trilogy, finale type thing.
Oh, see, I didn't.
But I didn't
mean,
know it
if you
was like
think-
Back to the Future 2 and 3. You know what I mean? When I sat down.
It's a same shit in Star Wars 5 to 6. You have the massive cliffhanger. Like
I kept
kinda
thinking about
open-ended
that, and I
story.
was like, it worked one time, and that was Empire Strikes Back.
You tried it again.
Yeah.
I mean, and then if you're old like me, you had to wait 3 years to see what happened next. And
Well,
Maybe
Maybe we'll have to wait 3 years for this one.
the changes I went through in those 3 years. I mean, I outgrew Tukey. That's but then I've come back around. So that's perfect.
Changes.
Anyway, well, we're hovering around the 90-minute mark, so I think it's a good time to go. I hope people enjoyed our conversation on Oppenheimer. Considering Raging Rhino, I hope we didn't spoil the movie for you. There is a bomb in it, but the movie itself is not a bomb. I wonder, by the way, how many film critics like they had in their head, like, I'm going to just write a movie that says the real bomb was on the big screen. And then they were like, oh, but I didn't hate it that much. Damn it. I had the perfect review, but
No, if they're of the appropriate age, they would just write the headline, Nolan's new movie, Da Bomb.
I like that. See, there you go.
That's good.
Yeah, that's the way that that Jeff looks at it, and of course that it was a Tuki Nuki. Jeff, this is a great time for you to be off social media because Twitter turned into X, and it was fine at first. I know you've got the hat actually, and it didn't matter, and then all of a sudden the app on my phone, without me doing any kind of updates or anything, it now looks like an X. So when I'm looking for Twitter, I'm not ready to look for that. I'm looking for the dumb blue bird. And yeah,
What I
so
love about it is that the app has not changed at all. It's
Yeah.
just an X at the top. Everything looks normal. And then when you look at your profile and things, it still says tweets. It still says the word is. I'm like, what a lazy hackneyed. This is like the biggest joke in the fucking world. It's so sad.
it's not great. Yeah, it's not great. And I use this this comparison often. Sometimes I feel like Elon Musk buying Twitter is a Brewster's Millions situation. If you guys are familiar with the great Richard Pryor film, where his job is to, I think, blow through maybe it's $30 million in a month. And then he gets $300 million as an inheritance, or he could choose to just keep the $30 million. So he's burning through money like an idiot, you know.
I
like
never
he has
thought that would be that hard. I never understood how that was like a challenge. I'm like, just buy really expensive shit. That seems pretty straightforward.
I mean,
you should be able to buy like a boat or two of a certain size, and you've spent that money. Sir.
I mean,
like,
just
I don't know what to tell you.
Just sign Justin Verlander for a year, and you don't have to have a team. You're like, no, he's under contract. Well, to what? To the Bladtcast. I've spent $30 million to sign him. So whenever I want him on, of Justin Verlander and Tuki on the show.
It's like that movie Blank Check, where the kid gets a blank check and I think he spends $1 million, but then you're looking at it, you're like, this is clearly like $40 million that you spent. You bought a castle. Like there's this is not $1 million.
And then filled it with like go-kart track and all these things.
Also,
lucky that it was like $100,000, and he's like, "Look what I can buy."
Yeah, maybe they never established how much it actually was, but I feel like it. Also, glad to know that man who wrote him a blank check kept whatever amount of money the kid spent just in his checking account. The check did not bounce.
Nope.
It went through. So it's a really rich guy with only liquid assets. That's really good for him.
Yeah, I think that's that's the takeaway. And you know, like most podcasts, we started out talking about Oppenheimer. We talked to a puppet for half an hour, and then we ended on Blank Check. I think that you know, it's very hard to make your show stand out when it's just like all the other ones. But we do what we can here on the Bladtcast. But Will, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I had one more thought just because we were talking about stuff. But when we were talking about Batman, I had just an image of like Elon Musk dressed in a costume, just running around San Francisco, punching poor people in the face for like committing crimes. He's just like, stop the crime, punches a poor person in the face. I'm Batman. Because it's just like, contextually, Bruce Wayne is this exorbitantly wealthy guy who, instead of doing like fundraisers and charities, out just like punching poor people who are criminals because they're criminals.
Yeah, I mean, what he wants to do is he wants to punch people like the Joker, but it's true. He does end up spending a lot of time, you know, just punching people for whom crime was the only option to try and get out of the underbelly of Gotham. Which you know, look, we can put old Bruce Wayne on the psychiatrist's couch on a future episode of the show. But if people do want to find you on X and Instagram, Will, where can they do that?
At Will Sterling _. Also on Threads. The weird, like, this is us trying to make Twitter, but when you're on it, you're like, it's just Instagram without pictures, but then you realize people can post their pictures to Threads, which just makes it Instagram again. Yeah. So I'm not sure.
And most people that I follow cross post their threads on Instagram, and I'm like, but where's the picture? Yeah. So and
isn't it all
and now I have to decide. What's that?
Isn't it all still just Facebook? Like your Twitter was just status updates, but without anything else. Yeah. So it's just all the same shit 100 times for you to be on more platforms.
The next one is going to bring us back around to basically to either MySpace or Friendster. We'll just have to keep watching. We'll just keep resetting. And then I'm like, do Do I have to hire Farad Muhammad to re-record our outro so that because he says Twitter and he doesn't say Threads? I kind of want to hear him say, and follow us on X. I kind of want to hear that. And Dominicus Saxon's right. We should let everybody know what our username is on AOL. Follow us on AIM at Bladtcast. But in any case, that'll be for next time. And at Will Sterling _. Did I get that out or did I talk over you?
No, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And it's interesting because your blinds are creating like a dot pattern of sunlight on you,
Yes.
but it's like not on your background because you're in Fraser's living room. So you can I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thanks again to Tukey for being our special guest, and also Will and Jeff for seeing this movie at very inconvenient times, just so that I could talk to a puppet. Didn't go and see it, but everybody wins on the Bladtcast, and you'll see more of that next time on the Bladtcast.